This is Doombox, and I am going to tell you all about vanquishing. Again, how to vanquish fast and effectively, some tips on vanquishing, and some great builds for your heroes when vanquishing. Now, if you're watching a video about Guild Wars 1 in 2024, you probably already know what vanquishing is, but you never know. For those who don't, let's go back to basics. So, in its simplest form, vanquishing is going into an explorable area in hard mode and killing everything. That's it. That's the entire video. Just kidding. So why would somebody want to do this? Why would somebody want to kill every single mob in an explorable zone? Just for fun? Just for the butts and wee-wees? No. The real reason you want to vanquish is for those sick titles. Now, whether you're going for titles simply to flex on the haters in Commandant, or maybe you want to pack that Hall of Monuments because you play Guild Wars 2 for some reason. Vanquishing's great for titles because you get not only one title, but 4. Technically 5 if you count Master of the North, but we're not going to worry about that now. So you've got your 3 main continents, right? You got Tyria, Cantha, Alona, and Utopia. Just kidding. Only 90s kids remember that. When you vanquish every single explorable zone in a particular continent, you will get that continent's Vanquisher title. And then when you do all 3 continents, you will get the title Legendary Vanquisher. Thus, the 4 titles. Alright, so how do you do this? How do you vanquish? Do you just run into an explorable zone, balls blazing, and hope for the best? No. First things first, you gotta have hard mode unlocked, which requires beating one of the campaigns. I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you've done that. If you haven't, you better get back to it. So once you got hard mode unlocked, you'll have this nice juicy helmet over here. You always want to click that bad boy, be in hard mode. When you have hard mode on, you can take a look at your map and you see these little red borders around each explorable zone. That means you have not vanquished it yet. Now, when you're in an explorable zone in hard mode, you'll notice this counter in your effects area. That number goes up as you kill each enemy in the zone. Once you kill the final enemy in a zone, you'll get this nice helmet showing up on the screen. And if you take a look at the map again, you'll see that that border has turned gold. And you can keep track of your progress on each Vanquisher title in the hero panel, along with any other titles that you happen to be working on. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you guys some general vanquishing tips, and then later in the video we'll dive into the real meat and potatoes, as the kids say, and go over hero builds and gear and all that juicy stuff. But for now, there's a lot of things that I wish I knew back when I was vanquishing 10 million years ago when Guild Wars 2 was but a twinkle in ArenaNet's ballsack. So I'm going to let you guys know those things so you don't make the same mistakes that I did when I was vanquishing. So the main thing about vanquishing is you can be working on a bunch of other titles at the same time. I know that seems pretty obvious to some people, but it wasn't obvious to me, and I had to go back to all of these maps again to do certain things. If you eventually want to get God Walking Amongst Mere Mortals, you're going to want to be working on multiple titles at once. One thing you can be doing while vanquishing is Cartographer. Be sure to scrape the edge of each map that you're in vanquishing. Otherwise, you're going to have to come back, and that's no fun. So just hug the walls, unfog everything that you have on the map, and you'll be working towards Cartographer at the same time. Another thing you can be working for is Skill Hunter. Just check the wiki before you enter an explorable zone. See if there's any elites in there that you need to capture. Bring a Signet of Capture with you if you feel like it, and then just capture any elite that you see. That's always a good thing. And also, if you're doing a vanquish in Nightfall or Eye of the North, or even factions, be sure to farm reputation points at the same time. Grab each bounty outside of the Res Shrine so you can be working on stuff like Sunspear, Lightbringer, Norn.
Never anger a Norn. Never anger a Norn. Never.
Always be sure to have death penalty removal with you, candy canes, power stones, whatever you got, because if you get to 60 DP and your whole party has 60 DP, you will get kicked out of the zone. Most people have tons and tons of stacks of these things now. Just save up some candy canes during Christmas or whatever, and you'll be good to go. Another bit of advice is Be sure you don't have Winds of Change or War and Kryda or any other Guild Wars Beyond content turned on. Otherwise, you will get absolutely shreked in these hard mode maps. The mobs for like Winds of Change and stuff are way overpowered, and it will make Vanquishing so much worse for you. So just abandon any Beyond quests that you happen to have on you at the time. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad day. Another sort of interesting fact about Vanquishing is pop-up mobs don't count when Vanquishing unless you pop them up. So any mobs that come out from underground, like Mandragore, or ones that drop down from the ceiling, like Ampha, don't count unless you pop them. So if you want to avoid them, you can make your Vanquish a little bit shorter, or maybe you do want to pop them and you'll get a little bit more gold and experience for finishing the Vanquish. It doesn't really matter, but it's just kind of a nice thing to know when you're out there doing it. So this one isn't exactly a tip, but more of a thing that you should watch out for when you're Vanquishing, and that is just be aware that sometimes the final mob or two takes a really, really long time to find. You'll spend an hour doing the Vanquish, and then you'll spend another hour trying to find the last enemy.
Where is he?
Now, there isn't exactly a way to avoid this completely. It kind of happens to everybody, but one way that you can try to make it happen a little bit less is do what I like to call the toilet bowl method, where you kind of swirl around each map from the edge going into the center. That way you at least have a better chance of hitting all the mobs as you're exploring the map. If you're brand new to Vanquishing, you probably want to start with Cantha just because the maps are smaller, there's less of them, it's generally considered to be the easiest continent to vanquish. You probably want to save Tyria for last just because it's kind of the biggest grind. There's so many maps and a lot of them are far away, not next to outposts, and you don't have 8-man parties for a huge chunk of the game. You can do some tricks to kind of get 8-man parties in places you're not supposed to, but that's for the try-hard sweaties, so don't worry about that. Speaking of try-hard sweaties, I know a lot of you guys came here for the hero builds, so let's jump into it. Alright, let's talk hero builds. Once upon a time, you could only have 3 heroes in your party at once. That's actually how I vanquished back in the day. I used a setup called the Triple Necro Machine. But nowadays, you can have 7 heroes in your party at once. There's mercenary heroes, and there's been long-established metas for like a decade, to the point where the game is very, very easy if you have the right hero setup. So I'm not going to go through every single skill I have equipped on every single hero. I'm just going to kind of give you a rough outline of what you should be doing, and that should be a good starting point. Like, I'll put the gear and attributes and stuff on screen, but everybody knows that I just copied these builds off of Snowcrow's, MetaBattle, PVX Wiki, so you can go there and download the templates yourself, or you can follow the video. I know some people prefer a video, so here you go. So, if I could summarize it in one sentence, it would be Mesmers are OP. And the reason why is because the hero AI is very good at using interrupts. It can cast the interrupt instantaneously when an enemy is using a skill. It doesn't rely on a human brain that can misclick. It does it perfectly every time. The other thing is Energy Surge is just a busted skill. It's armor ignoring damage, and it also drains the energy of mobs. And when you stack it on multiple heroes, it just melts an entire group. It's an AoE, and it ignores armor, like I said. So it's like you just use a bunch of ESurges and the group dies. You know, there are a couple of variations here that, you could substitute out some skills, but the main thing you want is Energy Surge, Mistrust, Unnatural Signet, Cry of Frustration is another very important one, Shatter Hex, Power Drain, Waste Not, Want Not, and then, Flesh of My Flesh. You want to res too. You could also bring Spiritual Pain. That's another armor-ignoring skill. And you don't need a res on every single hero. If you have an extra slot, you can bring Drain Enchantment. It's also good to strip enchantments off of enemies. But generally speaking, that's what you want to be doing. I happen to have a mercenary hero here, which allows me to add an additional Mesmer. You don't need that. The funny thing is, Energy Surge is so good, you could actually put this build on a caster that isn't a Mesmer. Like, if you wanted to get weird, you could, if you didn't have a mercenary, you could bring, like Vec or something, and you could make him, like, a secondary Mesmer. Okay, I don't know what the heck he's running here. But, you know, you could pop in some domination magic and literally just, like, pop on Energy Surge and kind of just mimic the build that I did here, but on, like, an Elementalist. Obviously, that's not, like, the best way to do it, but if you don't have all the heroes unlocked, like, just do that. Like, it's Energy Surge is so good that, like, it's worth doing that on. Another thing you could do with Mesmers is you can bring Ineptitude, which causes AoE blindness. That can be helpful in areas that have, like, heavy melee damage. Just keep those mobs blinded and you'll take no damage. This is another very good elite skill, but you really only want one of those. You don't want to bring more than one. Now, if Mesmers are the most OP class, I would say that Ritualists are the second most OP class, and arguably equally as important. There are two main Ritualist builds you want to bring, Soul Twisting and SOS. Soul Twisting has a lot of support spirits. You got Soul Twisting, Shelter, Union, Displacement, Boon of Creation, Armor of Unfeeling, Signet of Creation, and also Stand Your Ground just for, like, some extra armor. But these are, like, your support spirits, and this, like, reduces damage on your party by an insane amount. It's like you basically don't even take damage. And then you got your SOS Ritualists, Signet of Spirits. These are attack, like, damage spirits, along with Blood Song, Splinter Weapon. Especially if you're running melee like I do, Splinter Weapon is so good. Ancestor's Rage, Spirit Siphon, Mend Body and Soul, and Spirit Light. And these are just good heals. Protective Was Kaoli, which is like a party heal, also very, very good. This Ritualist combined with your Soul Twisting, like, your group will be so good. This is extra damage. The spirits act as mobs to, like, draw aggro, and it's just very good. And then finally, you're gonna want a BiP Necro, your Bipper, Blood is Power, right here. This causes energy regeneration on people in your party. It just keeps everyone topped up at all times. You got a lot of heavy casters here, so it's good to have energy regen. So you want Blood is Power, Blood Bond, and then just, you know, more resto skills on the Necro just for some extra heal. That's really all you need. Notice there's no monk in this party. All the healing comes from the Necros and the Rits, and support comes from the Soul Twisting Writ. And all of this stuff combined, like, you'll stay alive forever. You can, like, run into a mob and get up from your computer and go to the bathroom and come back, and you'll still be alive, and the mob will be dead. It's just that good. Like, check it out on PVX, tweak it to what works for you, and you'll be set, dude. It's good stuff. And then honorable mention to Minion Masters and Minion Bombers. Haters will tell you it's not meta anymore, but dude, there's just something about having a giant army of minions blowing up in the enemy's faces that even though it's not as good as it once was, I will always love bringing an MM, so it's not bad by any means. It's just that ESurge is so good that it kind of diminishes the need for an MM in the first place. But if you don't have a mercenary or don't feel like bringing an extra ESurge, just pop an MM on and have fun. I mean, that's what the game's all about, right? Now, I don't want to bore you guys and your grandmas all to death going over every single gear slot for every single hero, but you guys know the basic premise. You know, best Vigor rune you can afford, major or superior attribute rune on the headpiece, and then take your primary attribute and do a minor rune somewhere else and fill in the rest with, you know, energy or health or armor, you know, whatever. And then for insignias, you kind of just want anything that adds additional armor. So Prodigy's insignias for the Mesmers, Tormentor's insignias for the Necros, and then Blessed insignia anywhere else that you need it. Yeah. And then for weapons, you want to get a 40-40 or a 20-20 set, anything with half skill recharge and half casting. I always like to go to the weapon crafter in the Leviathan pits, or as my cousin used to call it, the levitation pits. He had a real issue with mispronouncing things in this game. I could go on for days about that. But yeah, go craft some at the weapon trader. You'll be good to go. Alright, well that pretty much wraps it up. Let me know if you liked it or if you hated it. You can PM me in-game as Doombox, or you can join my guild or my Discord. Link is in the description. We talk about Guild Wars 1, among other things. We'd love to have you there. For those of you who don't know, this is actually a remake of one of my first videos ever, Guide to Vanquishing. I made this back in 2008 when I was like 15 years old. it's pretty bad. I would not recommend watching it. Your ears will get blown out of their sockets the second the audio starts. I kind of just felt like remaking it just because that video is horribly outdated for one, and also I just thought it would be cool to see what it would be like to make it now all these years later with the current metas and my so-called improved skills making videos, if you can even say that. But I actually still have all of the original files for the video, believe it or not. I held on to them all these years later, like 5 computers later. I still have them, and I used some of the drawings in this video, the original files. You can probably tell which ones they were, but I thought that was a cool little touch. First of all, I'm curious how many people are still even watching right now, but more importantly, I'm curious how many of you guys were around for those original videos. Let me know in the comments if you watched my videos back then in 2008. It's cool that some of you have been there for that long, and I would also wager that some people watching this weren't even born in 2008, which is even crazier to me. I've gotten messages from people saying that their dads introduced them to Guild Wars and my videos, which makes me feel old, but it's still very cool that people are still playing this game all these years later. Yeah, it was really fun to revisit that old video of mine. I would like to maybe do it to some of my other older videos because they're just super outdated and people are still playing Guild Wars, and you gotta have up-to-date information. You watch those videos, you'll probably be worse at the game afterwards. But yeah, this was a fun one. It's, keen longtime viewers will realize that was actually the first ever incarnation of BiP 6. I didn't even really say it. It just kind of appeared on screen for 1 second, but that was the first time it was ever referenced. That video also didn't have the infamous Doombox theme tune in it. It was just the raw, unfiltered sounds of my Toshiba laptop microphone. So if you really want to feel brave, go dare to watch that video and give it a thumbs down while you're at it. Okay, well that is more than enough rambling for the end of this video. Anyway, this is Doombox, signing out.
That's pretty much everything you need to know about Vanquishing. I'm thinking about starting a series thing with these little guide videos